Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, or good afternoon, whichever it is. This is Miss Rathouse, fully caffeinated with coffee, and going to be a little bit more perky as I talk to you today about author's perspective. Now, when we talk about author's perspective, we are going to be talking about it in several ways. We could be asking you about the author's point of view, the author's viewpoint, the author's perspective, or the author's claim, because you are big kids in 8th grade now, and those kind of all go together. No longer are you going to be asked, is this first, second, or third person point of view? No longer are you going to get simple questions like that, because welcome to the 8th grade. Now you're going to get questions like, how does the author's perspective present itself in paragraph 4? Or which of the following claims demonstrates the author's point of view? No longer are you getting those simple questions about which point of view is this. Now you're getting complicated questions. So to help you out with that, I have made a screencast. Congratulations, welcome, and let's get rolling. So today we are going to be looking at what an author's perspective and viewpoint is. So if you look at this, the definition of author's point of view or perspective or viewpoint is the opinions and belief that that author shares with the reader. Again, that is the opinions and belief that the authors share with the reader. This can also be called, like I said, the claim and point of view on the test. So please keep an eye out when you're reading the test questions. It's going to ask you in different ways. Just have a good idea that author's perspective, viewpoint, point of view all go together as one happy little butterfly of happiness. Like that. So what all goes into developing that author's viewpoint? So that's a great question that we're going to be exploring today. What all goes together to create an author's viewpoint that they want to share with the reader? So think about it for yourself. What goes into your idea of the best brand of shoes? Is it the popularity of the brand name? Is it the colors? Is it the cost? Is it the comfort? All of these things tie into what you feel about one pair of shoes. So just like that, there are a lot of things that form an author's opinion about whatever topic they are talking about. So how does that author form their opinion that they share with the readers? The first way to look at it is they make a lot of inferences. So they make educated guesses. I like to say an inference is an educated guess, where you come to that conclusion based on evidence and prior knowledge. So evidence and prior knowledge go together, they get married, and they have an inference as a little cute little inference baby. So if an example of that is if you say, I need a coat, hat, and gloves, someone's going to think, oh, it must be cold outside because I need a coat, hat, and gloves. So inferences of the authors go into making a good viewpoint and showing that viewpoint to the world through their writing. Another thing that is going to affect the author's viewpoint is their purpose for writing. So you probably remember this beautiful little graphic over here where you have persuade, inform, and entertain, and you had wonderful pie days where you got to talk about pie and whether the author was persuading, informing, or entertaining. Well, no longer, boys and girls, are you going to get those wonderful, easy questions of what is the author's purpose, but instead, how does the author's purpose affect their viewpoint that they are conveying in the story? Or which of the following sentences demonstrates the author's purpose through their point of view? So the author's purpose is their reason for writing. So the reason that they're writing is going to affect what they write and what they tell you. Another thing that's going to affect the viewpoint of an author is their bias or their biases. So everybody has biases. I am biased towards people going to college because I went to college and I think it's important if you want to make more money to go to college. Is it necessarily the only way to make money? No, but I am biased based on my experiences. So that's basically what bias is. It's just an author's opinion, and it's their opinion, their personal opinion about a person, a place, or a thing. And sometimes biases are considered unfair or unjustified because they don't always have evidence to back them up. Sometimes they just have personal preferences or experiences to back them up, and sometimes that affects whether people believe their biases. A lot of times you've probably heard of, oh, don't go to that website because it's biased. Okay? A lot of news sources are considered biased towards what they believe. Conflicting evidence is going to affect an author's viewpoint. Evidence is from different sources that contradict one another. So conflicting evidence goes into that as a way to, it'll affect how the author views things, because they may get evidence from one thing that conflicts another thing, and they have to choose which piece of evidence they go with. So contradicting evidence can affect an author's viewpoint as well. I love this little cartoon. You can't see, the one guy is saying it's 9, the other guy is saying it's 6, and it says, just because you are right does not mean I am wrong. Just because you haven't seen life from the way somebody else has doesn't mean that they are correct and you are wrong, or you are correct and they are wrong. So that kind of leads into opposing perspectives and viewpoints. So these are ideas that are totally different from what the author believes and presents to the reader. A good author of informative texts or persuasive texts will not only tell you what they believe and not try to just convince you that they are right, but the best writers, and what I would like to see you guys develop into in 8th grade, are great writers. And great writers address the opposition. They look at what everybody else believes, and then they prove that wrong too. So opposing viewpoints is also going to, affect what that author tells you and what their point of view is, because they need to be able, a good arguer is able to address what everybody else is saying as well. So these are ideas that are totally different from what the author believes and presents to the reader. They should be in good writing. Sometimes they aren't, and that leaves room to speculate. Okay? So drawing conclusions is the last thing that goes into author's viewpoint. So this is where an author uses information from multiple sources before making an inference or assumption. So what I like to say is the inference is kind of like your solid hypothesis that you've proven at the end after you've drawn conclusions from your other guesses and any things like that. So your drawing conclusions is what you do to lead to an inference. So you've looked at all these different pieces of evidence, now you're drawing that conclusion. Authors have to draw conclusions before they write. This is not draw like little stick figures, okay, but drawing conclusions, they have to come up with a conclusion before they write, because otherwise they're just going to be aimlessly writing and you're not going to understand it. So drawing conclusions and making inferences kind of go hand in hand in my book, because they're educated guesses and conclusions based on research that they have done. So I hope this video is helpful to give you a little information about author's viewpoint and perspective and point of view. Remember that on the test you can see them referenced as that, so keep that in mind as you are studying and looking over things. And I hope this was a helpful video. If not, hopefully the next one will be. This one was definitely more energetic than my text structure one. So have a wonderful day and stay classy, ELA.